Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Welcome, everyone. I like to take just a moment to look at all of the screens and to see all of the faces and even the names of those people whose image does not appear. Because then I call up the image that's in my mind, that's imprinted on my heart, and to see all of you. We just chanted, wearing the universal teaching. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature. You know, our inquiry is one of the ways we come to embody and realize these universal teachings, or the universal teaching, which is our universal interdependence. This display that we see on the screen, we get a feeling for our connectedness, which is our true nature. All set in the context of this vast and inconceivable uniqueness. Each little square is different. Each of our lives are different. And each of our lives displays this uniqueness, which is an expression of this oneness. All of this sameness and difference unfolding within a world that is constantly changing, that doesn't ever stop. So we wear the teachings and realize the truth. I want to do something as a marker today. Today is almost exactly 1 year since I began to regularly offer inquiry online. I had, offered it a few times, and other folks had, but as the pandemic really set in, I found it something really powerful for myself to offer, to be called to offer, to know that each week I would need to step forward in some way. This is my own inquiry. Each week, it's as if I was raising my hand and had to come forward no matter what. And now, after 1 year, we can see some possibilities of a shift on the horizon for us relative to the pandemic, although things are still complicated. And who knows how it's going to go or what's actually going to happen, but we can already feel the move. And curiously, during this year, weekly inquiry, in some ways as it was in person at Appamada in Austin, we see that there is more participation in this than any other practice offering. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Like, why is this? So I thought it would be useful today at this 1 year anniversary of the regular online inquiry, a practice that actually I began at the Austin Zen Center. Gosh, I can't even remember how long ago, 15 years at least or more. it's important to review, and I want to suggest a nudge into, if I say it in a contemporary way, kind of inquiry 2.0, something a little different as we reemerge from this pandemic. And I asked myself, why do I think people show up? You would all, if I ask you, you would give me reasons. And some of what I've heard is that we get to touch on somehow the embodiment. Remember the wearing the teachings, the embodiment of liberation and care, what we just chanted. And something which I didn't coin this term, but I quite liked it. I think in inquiry we experience depth without dogma. Interesting way to speak about this. Everyday realization of our true nature. Here's a brief quote that I came upon, which I thought was beautiful. It wasn't about the pandemic at all. It was part of Joan Sutherland, great Zen teacher's comments on the Vimalakirti Sutra. But listen to the words in reflection to our current situation and our participation in inquiry. She said, when not consumed by delirium, you can also think about this in terms of politics, but we're kind of in a different place these days. When not consumed by delirium, when not focused on escaping the delirium of others, we began to turn back toward the world. Hearts shuddered in fear, yearned to open again to something larger than self-preservation. It seemed to touch something in me about where we are right now. When not consumed by delirium, when not focused on escaping the delirium of others, we began to turn back toward the world. Hearts shuddered in fear, yearned to open again to something larger than self-preservation. And I think our practice of zazen, the simplicity of sitting, and our inquiry offers a path to support those of us who want to turn back toward the world, but not just plunge back in or try to go backwards, but to turn back with diligent, mindful care, to welcome our own hearts back and plunge back into the heart of the world. Now, going back even a little bit further, I began inquiry because when I would meet people in individual practice discussion, usually during retreats, but also on a regular basis, or what in the classical Zen practice we call dokusan, which means literally dokusan means meeting in private. I had amazing moments with many of you in which things unfolded in the intimacy of that meeting that only I would experience and the person with whom I was speaking would experience, and others didn't benefit from that. And then the Japanese word for meeting in public is called shosan. So dokusan is private, shosan is public, and often that's a case in which the teacher would formally sit in front of the audience and people would come and ask questions or sort of challenge them around issues of the Dharma. We see this enacted in their head student ceremony. Some of you have seen this at the end of our head student ceremonies where Sangha members come and ask questions. These are the kind of questions that I'm interested in. Questions that ask about the Dharma and about your place in it and about how we move together as partners in the intimacy of liberation. So inquiry was a way to bring the intimacy of practice discussion and the beautiful shared quality of public question and answer together. And it's become apparently a very powerful practice for us. And it's become a gentle and relational entry point for a lot of people for practice in general. There are so many of you that may have come to inquiry that haven't come to much else. Many people are uneasy about the formal aspects of Zen practice, or at least their ideas of it. They get frightened or think it's something harsh. And so this is a way to kind of slip in. You don't even have to turn your camera on when we're online, and you can kind of peer in and watch. And it's this relational weaving of wisdom and compassion, hopefully. Once again, the embodiment of care and depth. And just a little more review, I think it's important. Those of you that have been in longer retreats and intensives, you realize that there's also quite a different quality in the flow of weekly inquiry and the moments of inquiry that are embedded in an intensive meditation retreat. In an intensive, we have a larger teaching context, an ongoing zazen, hour after hour, sitting and walking and working and eating and sitting some more. And then there's a moment of coming together and turning toward each other in inquiry. And once again, there's an embodied container of care and warmth among the participants. When we're in the same room, it's quite potent, even online. It still offers something quite deep. In weekly inquiry, there's a powerful vulnerability, of course, you see it, and an expression of mutual care, which flowers in this context too. Once there was a filmmaker from California who was doing a documentary on contemporary Zen teachers. And I was asked to interview with him, and I met with him when I was doing another consultation in Los Angeles. And we did an interview which was filmed, and then he came through Austin and came to inquiry. And as soon as the bell rang at the end for the completion of inquiry and we were about to go, he said out loud into the group, "Is it always like this?" Because he was quite surprised at the power and intimacy. And everybody said, "Yeah, pretty much." And he was struck, having spoken to many teachers and many sanghas across at least the United States, about the power of what all of you bring and the willingness that you have. In a recent online intensive, which some of you participated in, Peg and I, we didn't have the capacity to see everyone individually. And so we decided that we would take small groups of people, 4 at a time, and see them for practice discussion, but we would do it online with everyone, holding, witnessing, supporting, and encouraging, like all of you do. And just like in an intensive where you essentially don't have an option whether you see us as a teacher. We just take you in order, and when the time comes, they tap you, you come, and whatever is there, that's what you meet. It's not about a request or something's on your mind. It's the immediacy and vulnerability of Zen practice and action. And in our intensive, we invited that same immediacy, but with everyone holding everyone, and it worked quite well. And we might meet those 4 people in order online, and when they completed, if there was more time, then people could raise their hand. This is something that I think would be possibly useful for inquiry now, in this format. Another couple of reminders. Inquiry is not merely a support group. It's deeply supportive and powerfully encouraging, but it should also be kindly challenging and transformative, not harsh, but there is an edge, or it's just a support group. It's not transformative. There's no transformational spiritual practice involved. And we know that it's more than that, even though it is quite wonderfully supportive. It's also not a therapy group. Although these experiences sometimes can be amazingly healing and growth promoting in quite profound ways, the purpose And practices in inquiry are not working through archaic family issues or working to change maladaptive behaviors, but to see beyond the constructions of the individual self to which we cling. It's an opening to a larger context. So it's not a support group, although it's quite supportive. It's not a therapy group, although it's potentially healing, of course. Inquiry offers a different opportunity to look very deep into the ways we create and maintain unnecessary suffering, and how freedom from our ingrained habits, which cause and maintain unnecessary suffering for ourselves and for others, is possible by stepping beyond problem solving, beyond merely coping, and entering a larger world of mindful care. This is a bit of a different way. I'm going to say a few more things, but first, I would like to suggest we do something. I'm going to call on someone just for a second, if you don't mind, and someone that is one of my senior students, so I don't think he'll mind. And Josh, would you mind clicking the little thing that raises your hand? As if you were raising your hand to speak, so that pops you up to the top, and then you'll be unmuted. I think, yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So this is a little bit more like in practice discussion. Suddenly you've been tapped, and suddenly here you are. And now I've got 2 for 1 here too. And if you would come to sit with me like in an intensive, because it was just time. Here we are. What are you present to right now, right this moment?
I think I'm very present to being very busy and being very kind of pulled with my resources at the moment with various things that are coming up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking, I was remembering you said very often when we stop, we realize how tired we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling very physically tired, whilst also thinking, okay, when inquiry is over, I need to be thinking about this, this, and this, and
Mm-hmm.
how can I do it with a yes? I will do that.
Uh, so you're being assailed by life, as many of us are, and
Yeah.
feeling the impact, and remembering that in some ways one of the fundamental aspects of our practice is to learn not to masochistically burden ourselves or do something that's unwise or unwholesome, but to learn to say yes to this life. And then how do I move through it with care, with diligent, mindful care?
Yes. And I'm reminded of the koan. I think it's Yunyan, where he says, I'm searching for the one who is not busy,
Yes,
even though I'm busy.
yes, yes. And have a lot on your mind and your plate, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
it's also realizing it's a blessing. It's not, it's somehow, how can I surrender to something that is, feels like my duty, but in a wholesome way.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah, that's the balance. And there's, sometimes a little voice saying, "Oh, this is just too much."
yes. Good. Thank you for your willingness to just be called on and to bring forward what's present right now.
Thank you for
Yeah,
asking me.
yeah.
It's helpful.
And I see that even though I didn't call on her, Suzanne has raised her hand. So I'm going to ask her to go ahead and speak.
Thank you. It was helpful for me to just say it because it's kind of like, oh, this is me right now. So
And this is what's important. I'm going to come back to this. This is really crucial. Thank you.
Mm.
There you are.
Yeah.
We got you.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I raised my hand rather, um, and with a quick response to what Josh said about busyness, because I'm not busy and it's driving me crazy. Actually,
That's the other end, huh?
that's the other end of it. I'm on the opposite end of this. And I was finding myself be a little jealous of Josh saying, I've got a lot on my plate. And I know it's very wise for me not to have anything on my plate, other than what, comes up for me during the day, because I do need to have a lot of rest. But I was really struck with that sense in me because you asked, what's up for you right now? And I know I could answer that in terms of my how my life looks right now, and I could also answer it in terms of what I'm responding to and what in the conversation you just had with Josh.
Yes. And that difference is the difference between just ordinary everyday responses to something and how you turn towards a practice
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, Josh, so much for saying what you said. What you acknowledged there for you, for yourself, and it really helped me name what I acknowledge in myself. And I don't often speak of because I don't want to sound complaining. I mean, I have a restful life as I need to have right now. And I was raised to be busy.
And as
That,
you speak about diligent mindful care, there are ways in which we can be overwhelmed, and there are ways in which we can be called forward in ways that we actually can't meet and wish to. And then, what is the middle way, given what you're able to do, given what's possible?
Mhm. Well, that's one thing I really appreciated about, I don't know who said it in last week's inquiry, one of the men. You said, come to the middle way.
Hmm.
You're hanging out in the ditches.
Hmm.
Come to the middle way. That's,
Hmm.
well, that may not be the language I use every day. That's exactly what I ask myself every day.
Hmm. I also know, and I'm going to push this further, Josh and Trudy are sitting with these newborn twins and another child on the way, and you're facing the potential, at least somewhere, of a life-threatening illness,
Mhm,
the great matter
mhm,
of birth
mhm,
and death.
mhm.
And those things bring us as close as we can get to what it means not to be caught in our self-centered dream. But it brings it forward, doesn't it?
It does.
Everything comes
Right.
forward. Everything comes forward.
Everything comes forward.
And I want to return just a moment, if I could. There's a quotation I'm going to read to you, which is from Peter Herschock's book, Liberating Intimacy. And that book and this particular quote I come back to because it actually turned the way Peg and I um, shaped our teaching in Appamada. And it's going to sound a little strong. And it's because Herschock is also a philosopher, but I know him and so understand his warm-heartedness. It'll sound a little bit dense, but here we go. It's just a couple of sentences. And he's speaking about the revolution of Chan in China, which was Zen in Japan, the revolution of this practice. He said, the key to Chan enlightenment, the actual place from which it's possible to be fully realized, this enlightenment, and not merely talked about or thought about, is direct communicative crisis. That is, Enlightenment has to do with relationship, not with any one individual's attainments, and in particular with the kind of relationship in which everything is at stake and nothing is in principle excluded as impossible. In short, Chan enlightenment should not be seen as private and experiential in nature, but as irreducibly and intimately social. It sounds like a beautiful description of inquiry, doesn't it? But that punchy line, communicative crisis, that's when you're tapped on the shoulder, you go to the teacher. When you're called on, you bring what's here. It's not just a matter of feeling like it or not feeling like it. It's the immediacy. It's when you're up there, and both of you, Josh and Suzanne both, have sat with the staff in your hand and people coming forward, and you have to respond. And this is really the feeling of the difference in what inquiry offers, as opposed to, once again, either a support group or a therapy group, something that is immediate, something that calls you forward, even if you're not sure that you're ready, so that you can step beyond the way that you organize yourself to show up, to look just like the self that causes you and maintains your suffering, that you're clinging to, but hope to be free. Does this make sense? It's a confusing thing. And it's not a challenge that's harsh. It's an invitation that's generous. And something can come forward in a different way. For example, we're going to do something once again. Laura, Thomas, raise your hand. Laura, what's here now?
I just got really afraid.
And you know what you can do? You can always say, I pass.
Oh, sure.
But you have to meet first.
That's right.
It has to be part of our relationship.
I really, and afraid to hear my name, but before that, afraid to have heard that truth about how when you're called to show up and before you think you're ready, because you can't gather your old habits, you can't gather the persona of who you are, but you
What are
must
you afraid of right now? We're here with us, with me.
I think, well, I guess there's a fear and a vulnerability around who is that person without her facades, without her togetherness.
And that's the fundamental nature of our practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
To know that person.
Yeah.
What's happening now?
She really wants my love and my trust. I feel that.
And so do we. And as you look, do you see our love and our trust in you?
Yeah.
These are the people with whom you hold hands to step beyond the persona, that have the courage to look deeper, to go further, which Zen practice offers us, not just a retreat into a better self. And I notice you're touching your own heart.
Yeah. It's funny because it feels lighter at whatever this summoning is, to let down the weight of those barriers.
That's a beautiful way you just said that. Summoning allows you to put down the weight of those barriers. The thing that's frightening is the entryway actually to the freedom. That's why it's called communicative crisis, although actually it's the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else right now that you want to say or ask?
I feel grateful to be met and to be seen and heard and
Thank,
chosen.
thank you for your willingness. Obviously, I'm doing something different today to invite and invoke these things with people that I feel like I can trust and would trust me to step forward in this way.
I
So
do.
thank you.
And thank you for trusting me too, so that I can trust myself.
That's part of what happens. That's part of what's possible in this practice. Thank you very much. Mhm. Christopher Johnson, you raise your hand. So let's hear, Chris.
You old dog, you.
I know.
Um, Gratitude, deep, moving gratitude that is partly mine, but it seems like collective gratitude of these faces, seeing these faces, and especially with your turning it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A sort of a raising of the frequency, and probably other people too, but I know in my body there's a little more of an uprightness and an aliveness.
That's the intention. That is the intention.
You're kind of taking us by the scruff of our necks and thrusting us into it, and so we've got to be able to meet that too. And of course, the fears of being exposed, or the just even nervousness of,
Sure.
oh shit, what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to sense the aliveness underneath all of that all of that can settle into,
Yes,
is what I'm grateful for. And there's a
and
joy. Oh my gosh, there's a joy in it. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is joy. And what I've noticed lately is it's like the temperature rising in you around practice. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
There's something about that. That's part of why I called on you. And also because I knew that would probably be up for it. But there's some way that we get anxious about being what you call picked up by the scruff of our neck. But there's also the contact and the lovely feeling of being caught and held. So thank you. Mhm. And I'm going to call on one more person just to continue this for a moment. Christiana.
Hi.
Hi, what's here?
Well, I'm excited. And when the last Chris spoke about the scruff of the neck, I had an image of a mama tiger or my mama bear, the way they hold their young by the scruff of the neck and just carry them, here you go across the street or you go on this tree. And I had this feeling of excitement and thinking, I don't have, not that I think I'm going to die tomorrow, but this sense of intensity, that I don't have much time to fool around.
Yes.
I mean, I never did, but now I really don't.
But we realize it in practice.
Yes.
Through age.
Yes. Yes. So I don't know exactly where you're heading, but as soon as you started today, I started getting very excited and curious, and it felt right. It felt okay, I'm here. Let's go. Let's go.
And I know that you've also practiced in situations where there was a fierce kind of call too at times.
Yeah.
Uh, so I assumed you'd be willing.
Hmm.
Um, but you can feel the aliveness, it sounds like, that comes when we're asked to meet without all the preparation. Hmm. Good. And it's also beautiful to, although you've come forward some, to hear voices that we might not hear often. Thank you for coming forward. Is there something else you would like to say or anything else you'd like to ask at this point?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Hmm. Sometimes it takes a moment. So now notice inside all of you as we're waiting, do you feel more fear that you'll be called on or hope that you'll be called on? And does it go back and forth? Which way does it go? But you are more awake, aren't you? How about Brahman? I have somebody from Molokai.
Yes. Can you hear
What's
me
here this
okay?
morning? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good.
What are you present to in this moment?
Hmm. I'm present to my mind. Um, when I heard Inquiry 2.0, it reminded me of Hui 2.0
Exactly.
and when we're in this together.
Here we are.
And so I've seen, okay, the image that I got was I'm in a maze and my eyes are closed or open, but it's dark. And I'm used to finding my way through the maze fairly easily because there's a lot of light. And right now I'm in the maze and I'm asking others, do you see the way through? Because I'm feeling, I go by feel. And right now I'm not feeling the corner. You know, when you're in a maze,
Mm-hmm.
the place that opens to the next step, I'm not feeling that. But I know that I'll know. So that's feels like I'm in a maze. I'm not frightened. I'll open my eyes now because I'm I go between excited and a little bit of concern. In this moment, I'm just fine sitting with you.
It's lovely to sit with you.
Yes,
And Brahman is just 1 mile down the road from me right now.
yes, yes.
Just looking,
Yeah, just looking. And I feel a little teary-eyed when I say just looking.
just looking.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
looking, waiting, watching.
And my appreciation at this moment is your willingness to continue to step forward in that dark, working your way along the wall, trying to find the corner, and feeling our presence with each other somewhere in there in the dark sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the go ahead.
Which is the accompaniment of practice.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, what do you see? That question, what do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And the excitement of facing you or another human being, and the willingness to say, what do you see? What do you see in me? What do you see in you right now? I'm excited about what that is, the vulnerability that comes from saying, did you see harshness? Oh, let me look at that. Did you see, what did you see?
Mm-hmm.
And being around people who I can say, I see this right now. What do you see?
Mm-hmm.
There's a compelling honesty in that I'm very excited about.
Yes. And that's the field of awakening.
Yeah.
In seeing and being seen and opening to what arises in that space.
Yeah.
Thank you for your willingness.
Thank you.
Steve, Hopes, you willing to come forward? How's it going in your practice right now?
It's going well. Yeah.
Anything you wish to say in response to all this, or any question you have? Anything?
Mm.
Not required, just an invitation.
You're right. I appreciate the invitation. Yeah, my heart's really beating here.
You're really alive.
Yeah. Whether I was ready or not.
That's right. And that's how life is. And that's what our practice helps us meet.
Yeah. I think in listening to some of the others that came before, I think if you'd called me first and said, what are you present to? I would just said, I have no idea. And then listening to the others, I think what spoke to me or touched me was, I think it was Chris and Laura, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about fear, and it's like, yeah, I'm feeling afraid right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
fear is the shape that aliveness is taking as it moves through your body in this moment. Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of dealing with the great matters of birth and death right now.
That's close for you these days, hasn't it been?
And I guess the idea of coming forward and talking about it's like, no, I don't want to expose any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so much keeping it hidden from you or from the Sangha, it's more I just soon keep it hidden from myself.
Yes. And that's the real edge right there. And to admit it and to say, I fully avow that I sometimes want to keep this hidden from myself. And then you see all of those faces looking at you and all those hearts that are opening in response to your vulnerability, and you become a gift and they become the gift to you, to at least have you at least meet that edge. You don't have to push, just to meet it. And it's very dear. Thank you for stepping to that edge, Steve, with us.
So where do I go from here?
I don't know. Just let us care for you.
Either.
Yeah. Continue to take one breath at a time. Let us care for you. Let yourself take it and take in the care that's coming to you through these little portals as best you can. Thank you for vulnerability, and thanks for coming forward and meeting me and us. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I see that probably maybe Trudy has raised her hand, or Josh. Did it come back up? And you, Madir.
What was moving in me was longing. Like, oh, please call me.
I must have heard you.
You did, of course. And as you know, I'm swimming in failure at the moment.
You could feel the warm body next to you.
Yeah. I'm being really caught with kind of feeling the failure as a manufacture of my mind. You know, it's like...
you know that.
I know it.
It doesn't go away, but you know it.
I know it. Um, and I'm really bad at failing at things. I'm very good at being very good at things.
At the end of your poem about the bucket and the moon, you thanked me for helping you fail.
I know, I know.
And this, so I've continued, and now it's a problem.
Yeah.
You are one of the most dear and beautiful failures I've ever known.
Thank you.
It's whatever you manufacture as a failure just looks like integrity to me. Honesty, immediacy, love. And you call it something, failure.
Yeah.
And it feels like that. I know. I don't take that away. I can't. Mm-hmm. But
No,
I'll meet you in it.
Yeah.
And then that's the grist for awakening. Now, here.
Yeah. Because it's like I know both at exactly the same moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's the when we chant, the merging of difference and unity. It's like the merging of craziness and sanity, the merging of,
Yeah.
at the same time, you've become a large enough space that you can hold them at the same time. And what you hold is the same old human stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just good to see you and to say, yeah, swimming in failure. Sometimes it's quite balmy. And sometimes I'm just fucking drowning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I know you're there.
And I know you're there, and that's what matters them. And every single person who's spoken, that would be a good completion. Oh, and I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Yeah.
And I'm here too.
That's, yes. It's one thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your, all of you, for your willingness to participate in a little bit of a shift. It's not that I will never open it up for you to raise your hands again on your own, but I wanted to review where we were after this year. And I wanted to, as Chris said, turn the heat up a little bit. I wanted to, because I care immensely. I love doing this. I love being with you. And I don't want it to slide into a habit pattern or something less that it could be and is. And I see some heads shaking. This is too important, as Steve said. And about, the not wasting time as we make our way along the things, as Brahman said, sometimes in the dark. So if you would join me in reciting the 4 practice principles, which reminds us, of course, what we're up to here. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you very much. And I also noticed that as we went forward in this way, more people turned their cameras on. It's like, oh, I guess I better step forward. It's lovely to see that. And once again, we deeply, deeply appreciate your expression of dana paramita, of your generosity and offering whatever contribution you can for this special and precious time we have for each other. There is, if you go to the Appamada website, there's a link under contribute, which you can make to Appamada, to me as a teacher, to Peg, to various places. And please visit that if you will. It's another way of stepping forward and engaging the practice very, very fully. Thank you so much.
And as Flint was saying, he stole my line. Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support makes a huge difference. There is a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much, everybody. And we now move on to the second part of our offering, of our morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world, where we meet on the virtual porch, which is right here. So you just stay in this room. And if you need to take a couple of minutes break, please do, and then meet us back here for another 30 minutes, where we'll continue to meet and share. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.